This week on the Creek Midweek, I want to begin by asking you a question. How would you score your current level of overall health? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, how would you score your current level of overall health? A 3, a 7, a 5, a 1, a 10? Maybe you haven't thought about it lately, so think about it for just a moment and what number comes to mind. And then let me ask you a follow-up question. What informed your evaluation concerning your level of overall health? Is it your weight? Is it how you feel? Is it how you look? Is it your cholesterol number, your blood glucose number? Is it how you've eaten this week? Is it how many times you've exercised in the past 30 days? What influenced the number that came to mind? And then let me ask you to think about this. When I ask you about your overall level of health, did you only think about the physical? Or did you think about your emotional health? Did you think about your financial health? Did you think about your spiritual health? Did you think about relational health? Did you think about all the other areas of your life? And if not, when you do think about those things, does it change the score that you gave yourself in the very beginning? That's what I want to talk about this week on the midweek and in the next few weeks over the Creek's midweek. I want to talk about healthiness. And I want to talk about our current level of health. And I want to talk about our health in some really important areas of life, because how you and I perceive our level of health, and more than that, the true reality of our health, really has much to do with the life that we live. Someone has said that healthiness becomes the foundation for a life that's lived to the full. In other words, when we don't feel healthy, we don't live life to the full. When we are unhealthy, we don't engage life as much. When we are unhealthy, our passion wanes. When we're unhealthy, we don't have as much of a sense of purpose for life as what we do when we actually are healthy. How we perceive our level of health, and again, the true reality of our level of health, has much to do with how we live life, how we see and how we experience life. Think about this. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If you're not healthy, you can't leverage your talent to the max. Your level of passion will be compromised because of a lack of health. The ability to express love for those around you will be undermined by a lack of health. How you live out your faith among people will be affected when there's a lack of health. Your potential can be lost and forfeited because of a lack of health. Now, obviously, I'm talking more than just physical health, because we are much more than just our physical bodies. You can lack physical health because of no choice of your own, but still very much have a great sense of healthiness in other important areas of your life. And so I want to talk about one of those areas for just a few moments this week. I want to talk about relational health, because it's so important if we're going to live life to the full, if we're going to live life passionately, if we're going to live life with a sense of purpose, if we're going to engage, if we're going to live our faith out. It's so important to be healthy when it comes to the relationships that are in our life. Relational health is a big part of life. Matter of fact, some of the most important decisions that we will ever make in our life, those decisions are relational decisions. Sociologists say that we have the capacity to manage up to 150, relational connections. And that's probably true. The experts tell us that it is, but we see that all the time, social media and large groups and maybe the company that we work in. But even though we're able to manage 150 relational connections, those are pretty much shallow connections. Those are not deep, influential relationships. I want to talk about the closest connections, because it's the closest connections that influence us the deepest. It's been said that we are the sum total of our 5 closest friends. So just stop and think about that for a moment. Think about your 5 closest friends, and maybe you're thinking, I don't have 5 close friends. Well, just think about the people that you consider yourself closest to, and go up there to the top of the list and think about those 5 people. Because studies have been done about this, and experts have said in multiple places that when it even comes to things like salary, if you take the 5 closest people that you relate to the most, spend the most time with, you'll find that your salary either rises or sinks to the level of those 5 closest friends. Relationships are a big part of life, and relational health is important to the life that we live, how we see life, how we experience life. Also, think about this. When it comes to relationships, healthy relationships, it's been proven to extend our lives. It's actually more beneficial than exercise. It makes our life better and it makes our life longer. It boosts our sense of happiness. Healthy relationships help with stress. When we're around happy people, we have a deeper sense of happiness ourselves. This is why healthy relationships are so important. It improves our self-confidence and self-worth when we have healthy relationships. It helps us to make better decisions. It helps us through the traumatic and difficult moments of life. And it gives us a sense of connectedness. We're not isolated. We're not alone. The scriptures have a lot to say about healthy relationships and about having a high degree of health as it relates to the relationships that are in our life. Listen to what Solomon said in Proverbs chapter 13 at verse 20. Walk with the wise and become wise. That's a big deal. When you walk with wise people, you become wise. But then he goes on to say, for a companion of fools suffers harm. If you want to be wise, hang out with some wise people. If you want to suffer harm, hang out with some foolish people. Solomon, over and over again, through a lot of different proverbs, he teaches us the principle that healthy relationships are a powerful mechanism for personal growth. Healthy relationships are a powerful mechanism for personal growth. The friends that we have predict our future. If you want to look into your future, just look into the face of your friends. Proverbs 18:24. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. In other words, our friends affect the quality and the direction of our lives. We've all heard this one, Proverbs 27 verse 17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Healthy friendships make us better. They don't make us worse. They don't push us down. They actually lift us up. Proverbs 12:26, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. So choosing our friends, choosing our closest friends is a matter of great importance. And this is a principle that we see all throughout the scriptures, because where you're headed in life and where I'm headed in life is very much connected to who I'm going through life with. Where I'm going in life is very much connected to who I'm going through life with. Solomon, he wrote about this, like I said, over and over again, not only in the book of Proverbs, but he also wrote about it in the book of Ecclesiastes. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, he says this at verse 7, and again I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. And so he had a lot of wealth. He had a lot of material possessions. And then he says, for whom I am toiling, he asked himself, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? So even though he had all of this stuff, he found himself missing something. Something was absent. Something was lacking. He said, this too is meaningless, a miserable business. Then he goes on to say in verse number 9, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. He goes on to say in verse 10, if either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. In other words, life is better when we are together. It's a dangerous thing to have no one. It's a dangerous thing to be cut off and isolated and alone. It's a dangerous thing to fall down and have no one there to help you back up. In other words, it's a bad place to be in life to have unhealthy relationships. To be unhealthy at having relationships, to be lonely, to be cut off, to be isolated. We've never been more connected, but we've also never been more alone. At least in recent years, as experts tell us that social media has actually, instead of brought us closer together, it's actually in many ways pushed us further apart. Listen to what he says in verse 11. He says, also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? He's driving home the point over and over again. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Solomon says the wisest thing for you and I is to have healthy people in our lives, to have healthy relationships in our lives, because healthy relationships will make us healthier. Healthy relationships will make us healthier. So here's what I want us to think about as we go through the rest of this week. Begin to think about pursuing, building, and maintaining healthy relationships. Pursuing, building, and maintaining healthy relationships. And so I want to leave you with just a few questions. I'm going to ask these questions, maybe make a statement or two about each one, and then I'm going to let you wrestle through the rest of these. Number 1, who am I close to? Who am I close to? Who are my closest friends? What are they like? What's their value system? What is it about them that makes them healthy? What is it about them that may make them unhealthy? Who am I close to? Have I thought about it lately? Make a list. Who am I close to? Second question, who am I distant from? Who did I used to be close to, but I'm not close to anymore? And is that a good thing? Who was I once upon a time close to, but because of life or because of an event, because of words spoken, because of hurt feelings or whatever it is, who am I now distant from? Who are those people? Are there any? And does something need to be reconciled? Does something need to be said? Is an I'm sorry in order, or an apology in order, or forgiveness in order? Who am I distant from? Third question, who do I need to have in my circle that's not in my circle? If circle influences capacity, if my circle of friends influences my capacity as an individual, then who do I need to have in my circle? Who are those people that are not currently in my circle, but I need to go pursue, build a relationship with some folks? Who are those folks? Who's better? Who's further down the road? Who's stronger? Who do I have something to learn from? Who's a better parent than I am? Who's a better business person than I am? Who's a better follower of Jesus than I am? Who needs to be in my circle that's not currently in my circle? Write those names down. Fourth, this one's a bit uncomfortable. Who's in my circle right now that perhaps doesn't need to be in my circle? Who's making me a lesser version than what I can be as a person? Who pushes me down? Who creates a lid on my life? Who do I stoop to the level of every time that I get around and I play the game that they play, and I talk about people like they talk about people, or I begin to get the pessimistic, negative attitude like they do? Who's in my circle that maybe doesn't need to be in my circle? And then 5, when's the last time I've made a new friend? When's the last time that I've made a new friend? Am I making new friends? Am I beginning to learn new perspectives, hear new opinions, new takes? A fresh wind of new takes about the world around me? Have I made a new friend lately? And if not, why not? Have I just grown stale in my relationships, or am I challenging myself to get out there and meet new people and get to know new people who have different perspectives than I do, different life experiences, different world views than what I have? Relational health, it's a big part of our life. It determines much about how we see and experience life. Walk with the wise and you'll be wise. But if you walk with fools, well, there's ruin on the other side of that. Next week, we're going to continue to talk about this idea of health, but I want you to think about these questions. Who am I close to? Who am I distant from? Who do I need to have in my circle that's not? Who's in my circle that doesn't need to be? And am I making new friends? Think about those questions and think about how you would score your current level of relational health. And then figure out what you need to work on, and let's all go to work. I'll see you next week on the Creek Midweek.